Friday in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and I had a series of sermons that I did based on questions the congregation asked, and I titled it What You Always Wanted to Ask. And one of the questions that came up during the time of what you always wanted to ask from Scripture was a question about, what do you do about disputes? Can a Christian sue a Christian? Can a Christian sue at all? What does the Bible have to say? Well, it reminds me of a joke about a man that was an attorney. And one of his friends said, I understand that your wife is expecting. The attorney said, that's correct. He said, well, have you picked a name? And the attorney said, yes, if it's a girl, we're going to name it Sue. And if it's a boy, we're going to name it Bill. Work on that for a while. Sue and Bill. In any case, disputes and quarrels and conflicts will come up, both between Christians and non-Christians, and between Christians and non-Christians, and non-Christians and Christians. There's a lot of opportunity for that to happen in our world, where we have people that are in a hurry to sue, to bill, and to try to make some money on the situation. What causes these conflicts? Well, some is flesh, some is pride, some is greed, and some is misunderstandings or poor communications between two parties. But God says there are three remedies that we can apply scripturally to any one of these situations. First is we can fight. And that's the human Adamic nature, natural tendency for all of us to fight. Second one is to forget it. Is it really that important? The third one is to fix it. So let's take a look at these three remedies for quarrels, disputes, and conflicts. Certainly we don't want to fight if we don't have to, but God made provisions for what might have to be, and He calls it fixing it, not fighting. Fighting never accomplished anything. As a matter of fact, I remember in a town that I lived in, two of the church members had a dispute. One was a general contractor, the other was a homeowner. It was very clear to me as an outsider looking in that there had been a miscommunication, both by the homeowner and by the contractor. And it caused for a disagreement about the billing prices and what had to be done and what didn't have to be done. Well, they went to the pastor and they asked him to mediate. That seemed like a real good idea to me at the time as a layperson looking at it from the outside. And here's somebody that's going to be impartial because they're both church members, and he'll listen to both sides and then he'll make a fair and just ruling. And he did. He listened to both sides. He looked at all of the evidence. He weighed it out carefully. He didn't play any favorites. He said, here's what the homeowner had done that was causing part of the problem, and here's what the contractor had done that was causing part of the problem. And he came up with what I thought, as I heard about it, a fair and equitable way to resolve the problem. They went ahead and abided by the pastor's input as to how they should settle it, and they both left the church. So maybe that's not the best answer for a pastor to do, get in the middle of a dispute between a couple of church members, or maybe the church members needed to be more mature and accept the fair and justifiable resolution. So we can forget it, and there's certainly good scripture reference to that. Proverbs 17:14 says, the beginning of strife is like letting out water, so abandon the quarrel before it breaks out. There's some things that just aren't worth fighting about. Sometimes the resolution is not worth the fight, not worth the situation, and the best thing to do is just forget it. Fixing it, of course, God's made provisions for that. He made provisions through the laws that are listed in Deuteronomy and Leviticus. And he provided judges that were impartial. We find examples of this in Exodus 22 and 23, Moses, Exodus 18. Provisions for the law are, of course, in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. He provided judges with integrity and understanding of the laws and with full investigation. And that's obviously, if it has to go to that extent, it will take an impartial and understanding of the laws and full investigation to bring about a resolution. And God certainly provided for that. He wouldn't have given us all of those rules and regulations if that was not part of what he wished. And we can fix the problem. Proverbs 18:17 says, "The first to plead his case seems right until comes the examination of him." So there's always two sides, and it takes sometimes the mediation of judges and laws to bring about a fair resolution. So we can fight. That's not a good solution. We can fix it by going through God's laid out plans for resolving disputes. And we can forget it. If it's not a big deal, we just forget the whole thing. Certainly lots of examples of all of this. Jesus taught in Matthew 5:9, "Blessed are peacemakers." He gave us the steps of reconciliation in Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17. He certainly has shown us in the Old Testament examples of people forgetting things. Abraham and Lot. Abraham said, "Just go ahead and choose the best land, take whatever you want. I'll go the opposite direction." Isaac with the wells, and Abimelech just moved on and dug some new wells. Jesus said, "Turn the other cheek." So when that's possible, that's sometimes the best thing to do. Sometimes it's not possible, and you do have to go through the proper steps. Whether or not you ought to ask your pastor to be the mediator, I guess you have to think about the two people that are involved and think whether they're mature enough to accept that the pastor is truly being impartial and that they won't leave the church because he is mediated or because they can't face the other person. But you can certainly see that the Bible makes provisions for all disputes, conflicts, and disagreements. And we've got to be mature enough to accept when the judge's integrity is good and the understanding of the laws is good and a full investigation is made, that a fair resolution ought to be able to be obtained. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.